Hello and thanks for joining us. This is Chansimaloza Banda with the bulletin. The headlines. Magistrate refuses to recuse himself from extradition case of Prophet Bushiri and his wife Mary. Government allows exportation of 350,000 metric tons of maize before next harvest. Former President Bakiri Muluzi joins queue of COVID-19 vaccine recipients getting a jab at his home in Blantyre. And in sports, Malawi's Flames are off to Sudan for an AFCON qualifier match on March 24. Now the news in detail. Chief Resident Magistrate Patrick Chirwa has refused to recuse himself from hearing the extradition case of Prophet Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary to South Africa, where they are wanted for alleged fraud and money laundering. Lawyer for the two, Apona Kita, earlier argued that Chirwa should not preside over the matter for reasons that he is the same magistrate that issued a warrant of arrest for the two. But in his ruling, Chief Resident Magistrate Chirwa said the arguments that he would be biased against the couple are unfounded. Andrew Viano was at the court and sent us a report.
The extradition case for Prophet Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary was scheduled to commence last week Monday, but that did not happen after defense lawyer Apona Kita asked for an adjournment to allow time for the defense to apply for recusal of the presiding magistrate. In his argument, Kita said Chief Resident Magistrate Patrick Chirwa should not preside over the matter for reasons that he is the same magistrate that issued a warrant of arrest for the couple. But in counter-arguments today, Monday, Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, Dr. Stephen Kayuni, said defense lawyer Kita's arguments were based on mere perceptions and therefore asked the court to dismiss the application. Dr. Kayuni also argued in court that this was a desperate attempt by the defense to delay the extradition matter. In his ruling, Chief Resident Magistrate Patrick Chirwa dismissed the application to recuse himself from the case, saying the arguments put forth by the defense were unfounded. The defense, through lead lawyer Apona Kita, is now filing a new notice asking the court to consider extradition proceedings as civil proceedings and not criminal in nature. The court is expected to rule on this matter next Monday. Prophet Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary are challenging their extradition to South Africa. They jumped bail in that country late last year on concerns that their lives were in danger from some South African police officials.
Revocation of Norman Tisali in the attempted murder case. Judge Sylvester Kalembera says state failed to establish that Tisali was interfering with a witness. State wanted Tisali back in prison on allegation that accused person was interfering with his witness. Details in this report filed by Happy Njalamano.
It ended in joy and smiles for Norman Chisale, who the High Court in Blantyre ruled in his favor in a bail revocation application. Chisale, a security aide to former President Peter Mutharika, is answering an attempted murder case, but the state wanted the court to revoke his bail on witness interference allegations. Judge Sylvester Kalembera has ruled that the state failed to prove that Chisale indeed interfered with the witness, Moses Banda. The state then closed its case after parading the last three witnesses. One of the state lawyers, Pilan Masanjala, feels Chisale has a case to answer. But Chance Gondwe from the defense team does not think his client has a case to answer.
Now at this point in time, we leave everything to the court, but we still feel that the state has not proved their case at this stage, but we leave everything to the court.
Judge Kalembera will April 16 make his ruling on whether Chisale has a case to answer or not.
Former President Bakiri Muluzi has joined the queue of AstraZeneca vaccine recipients. He got the jab Monday afternoon from his residence in Blantyre. Our Alex Banda saw this for us.
Former President Dr. Bakiri Muluzi has today taken his AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine at his BCA residence here in the city of Blantyre. The president said this was a unilateral decision looking at the devastation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic.
I made a personal decision to take this vaccine. I made the decision particularly looking at the devastation the coronavirus is causing the worldwide, as you know, globally, there have been these problems. Let me also say that we are aware that almost 2.6 million people have succumbed to coronavirus. And in our country, there are about 1,083 as of yesterday who actually lost their lives. These are loved ones. So I say, look, despite all these myths, people are talking against the vaccine. I said, let me give an example to my fellow Malawians that there is nothing to fear about the vaccine.
The former Malawi leader said he gave few pointers to President Lazarus Chakwera when he visited him here at his BCA residence on Friday.
Well, you know very well that he took over at a time when we have this pandemic. It's a challenge economically, socially, and otherwise. It's a big problem for the country, not only for the government, but for all of us, because we are seeing the challenges that we are facing. So we discussed about it.
Editor-in-Chief for The Weekend Nation at Nation Publications Limited, Nkhani, said this is a life-saving opportunity that he has also gotten a chance to take a jab.
Many of my relatives have gone. Probably if they had the chance of taking the jab that I've taken today, they would have been alive. So I feel that I'm very lucky to be one of the first few people to take the jab today.
For Zodiak at the BCA residence in Blantyre, this is Alex Banda.
Well, like you heard, the administration of AstraZeneca rolled out in all parts of the country Monday in the raging war against the spread and impact of the coronavirus disease. The rollout this time targeting frontline health workers, security personnel and persons with underlying conditions could take a few days before the exercise is open to all and sundry. Our reporters went out to get the feel of how the exercise has begun. First in Lilongwe.
Scores of health workers in Blantyre and some police officers Monday morning.
So this is where it is all happening. Malawi has today finally rolled out the COVID-19 vaccine. We should know that last week, President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, together with the Vice President, took their jabs. This is the time that Malawians have been waiting for. The COVID-19 vaccine is finally here. We received close to 360,000 jabs. Malawians are waiting to see an end to this virus. We should know that COVID-19 is still with us, is still among us, and we should all go for this vaccination. And in the first phase of the vaccination exercise, health workers are the ones that are receiving this jab. As you see in the background, health workers are taking turns one by one getting the vaccine. Some still feel that the vaccine has some side effects, but we have talked to a number of people who have already taken this vaccine, but there is nothing that they are feeling.
My name is Edwin Mibawa. I'm working here at Bwaira. I feel very comfortable. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing strange in my body. I've been waiting for the vaccine. There was nothing wrong with me. I've been waiting for this vaccine.
It is an encouragement to all of us to go for the vaccine once it is rolled out in our areas.
I would encourage them to please come and get vaccinated or go to their nearest health facilities or wherever we're giving this vaccination to do that. It does not hurt in any way. As you can see, we have started in the morning. We haven't had any side effects or adverse effects so far. I have had my shot, and so far I feel fine, except for the sting, the usual, when you get injected. But other than that, I think it's fine. So I would encourage my fellow Malawians to come and not get scared, or all these things that are going around, all these misconceptions that are going around. Please, let's come and access the vaccine.
The first phase, it is targeting those with chronic conditions, the elderly, and those who are health workers. It is time for us Malawians to take the COVID-19 vaccine. We should all know that it is optional to take the jab. It is not a compulsory exercise. It is optional whether to take it or not. And here is Waila Hospital in Lilongwe, one of the centers where the vaccination exercise is taking place. And this is Chimwemwe Parata from Lilongwe, Waila Hospital.
In Blantyre, we have Christopher Sunday on the ground.
Scores of health workers in Blantyre and some police officers Monday morning flocked to health facilities in the commercial city to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. Director of Health and Social Services in Blantyre, Dr. Gift Kawalazira, thinks this will protect health workers and security personnel from the virus. He then called on villagers to disregard the false rumors surrounding the vaccine, adding that the AstraZeneca vaccine was scientifically proven to be safe. Dr. Veronica Ngoma from Ndiland Health Center, nurses Grace Yakobe from Limbi Health Center, Ellen Jana from Gateway Clinic, and Inspector Chimwemwe Manjoro from Limbi Police Station say they decided to receive the vaccine for them to be safe from the pandemic, considering that they meet a lot of people on daily basis. Reporting for Zodiak from Blantyre, this is Christopher Sunday.
Government has lifted a ban on exportation of maize of up to 350,000 metric tons by local traders in a process planned to be undertaken before harvest of crops in the current farming season. Spokesperson for the Ministry of Trade, Maeson Sokera, says a number of companies, including ADMAC, have already shown interest to export the commodity. A commentator on agriculture and food security, Lonjezo Maskini, has however cautioned government to ensure that the country has enough stock left for local consumption. More in this report filed by Winston Kaimira.
The Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation is among traders that have shown interest to export maize. The government parastatal has applied for a maize export license targeting up to 50,000 metric tons of the commodity. The Minister of Trade says 350,000 metric tons of maize from last year's harvest needs to be exported. Ministry spokesperson Maeson Sokera says this will assist in creating storage space for maize to be harvested this year. He said the ministry will be inspecting maize before issuing a license to ensure the process does not affect the country's food situation.
We are looking at the maize surplus of about 356,000 metric tons, and this is what we intend to export. And I must emphasize that we are looking at figures for last year's harvest. So, according to the food balance sheet as prepared by our colleagues in Ministry of Agriculture, we still have these excess maize.
Meanwhile, a commentator on agriculture and food security, Lonjezo Maskini, has advised government to ensure the country has enough maize stock in the exportation exercise.
We need to make this decision when we are very sure if we have got the surplus of maize in the country to avoid finding ourselves again in a difficult situation in the future of importing maize from other countries. So if the government is very sure we have surplus maize, surplus food in the country, this is a very good decision. It's a way to go.
Results of the first round of the crop estimates show that the country will harvest surplus maize of up to 1.1 million metric tons this year. This is Winston Kaimira reporting for Zodiak.
State House says President Lazarus Chakwera will not act on a petition by Mzimba North legislator Yeremia Jehana to fire Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Mr. Zangazanga Chikosi. Speaking during this week's State House briefing, Presidential Press Secretary Brian Banda said the President will not be commenting on legislators' remarks in the August House. Jehana issued the petition in Parliament last week saying Chikosi is incompetent. Alex Banda reports.
The Solo Alliance for Democracy Afford legislator from Zimba North constituency, Yeremia Jehana, sparked controversy in Parliament last week when he demanded that President Lazarus Chakwera fire the Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Zangazanga Chikosi. Jehana had alleged that Chikosi is not a darling to most civil servants and he is overshadowing the progress made by Vice President Dr. Saulos Chilima in the public sector reforms. The legislator was of course booted out of Parliament when the Vice President in his capacity as Minister had the floor in the August House. Reacting to the remarks to fire Chikosi during this week's State House briefing held virtually, Presidential Press Secretary Brian Banda said Chakwera will not be acting on the demand. In fact, The Director of Communications at the State House, who is also the Executive Assistant to the President, Shoni Kampondeni, had briefed the media area that Chakwera was in a meeting with Chikosi. On the meeting with the former President, Dr. Bagiri Muruzi, at the BCA residence in Blantyre last week, the Press Secretary Brand Banda said the President is not going to intervene in the 1.7 million kwacha corruption case. These remarks comes following a public recommendation by former ACB Director Reinek Matemba, who had recommended that the 1.7 billion kwacha corruption case involving Dr. Bagiri Muruzi is going to be solved using political means. For Zodiak in Blantyre, this is Alex Banda.
You're watching the news here on Zodiac. We'll be back with more news after this.
To achieve great things in life, you must do little things every day, like the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate. 1, wake up, wake up. 2, brush up, brush up. 3, smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong tea. Smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong tea. Do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate and give yourself a future to smile about. If there's one thing that all soaps do, it's wash. From buckets to basins, bathrooms to streams, and everything in between.
All soaps wash.
Yes, but Protex is different. Its reinvented formula with flaxseed oil boosts your skin's natural anti-germ defenses by 10 times more, protecting you against 99.9% of germs. So what keeps us healthy?
Protex!
Good health starts here.
Do your gums hurt? Yeah. Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile? All that in one toothpaste? Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums. Ah, Colgate Herbal. Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Welcome back. You're with me, Chansimlo Zabanda. Before we continue with the news, let's take another look at the top stories. Magistrate refuses to recuse himself from extradition case of Prophet Bushiri and his wife Mary. Government allows exportation of 350,000 metric tons of maize before next harvest. And former President Bagiri Muruzi joins queue of COVID-19 vaccine recipients getting a jab at his home in Blantyre. In sports, Malawi's Flames are off to Sudan for an AFCON qualifier match on March 24th. Now, back to court. A magistrate in Lilongwe has adjourned to a later date the case of Stuart Kalungama accused of defiling his 9-year-old stepdaughter in Lilongwe. The court says adjournment is to allow for Kalungama to undergo medical attention. Lawyer for Kalungama, Edward Shigalamuga, told the court his client has acute diarrhea and headache such that he could not stand trial. State lawyer Eunice Ndingo told us that the state was ready to start parading 4 witnesses. Western Guta was at the court for us.
Stuart Kalungama, the man from Chilinde in Lilongwe accused of defiling his stepdaughter, appeared in court again today, Monday. The case has been adjourned by Chief Resident Magistrate Patrick Chirwa following an application by Kalungama's lawyer Edward Chagalamuka that his client has acute diarrhea and serious headache, of which he wasn't fit to stand trial.
We requested that he should be taken to hospital, be examined, and then the medical officers should certify as to whether he is fit to continue with the trial or rather that he should be bed rest for her.
However, state lawyer Eunice Ndingo told us that it is unfortunate that the defense is delaying the case since the state was ready to parade its 4 witnesses, including a Kamuzu Central Hospital medical doctor who examined the girl.
There are proper procedures that are supposed to be followed when one is sick, and these processes were not followed. And he said, okay, if anything, maybe what the defense lawyer was trying to do was to buy more time or to delay the whole trial.
In his determination, Chief Resident Magistrate Patrick Chirwa wondered why Maula prison officials where Kalungama is remanded, did not report his sickness, advising that the police take the accused for medical checkup, whose report should be ready by end of business. As it is, continuation of the case will depend on the medical report. Hundreds of people, the majority being women clad in black attire and chanting solidarity songs for justice for the young girl, gathered at the court, including politician and activist Jesse Kabwira and women activist Beatrice Mateyu. For Zodiak in Lilongwe, this is Western Guta.
The Malawi University of Science and Technology MAS says it has an uphill task to achieve the Buy a Gadget campaign for every student, as out of 3,000 planned gadgets, they have only managed to get less than 500. MAS Vice Chancellor Professor Adres Malata has since appealed to various stakeholders for support. She was speaking on Monday afternoon when FDH Bank donated 3 million kwacha to the university to support the campaign. Let's now move on to sports. The Malawi national football team, the Flames, have left the country for Sudan, where they will play South Sudan in AFCON qualifying campaign on March 24. Flames coach Meke Mwase said he has gathered enough arsenal to get the result. Bright Kanyama has a report.
Locally based Flames players have this morning left the country for Sudan, where they are expected to play a must-win Africa Cup of Nations encounter against South Sudan, but they will make a stop in Ethiopia to play a strength testing match against the country's national team. Flames coach Meke Mwase said he has faith in the players that they will win against the Bright Stars on March 24 and again on March 29 against Uganda. Meanwhile, local sports analysts have advised the Flames players to be mentally and psychologically strong ahead of the must-win encounter against the Bright Stars. The analysts, Hadrod Nkandawire and George Kauzamasina, were optimistic that the Flames will progress to the next round if they can get a win away to South Sudan. Masina says all is not lost for the Flames.
This is a different team, tournament and different scenario altogether, because there's no returning match coming. And we don't need to defend. We need to attack.
Nkandawire shared similar sentiments.
Everything starts psychologically. So it depends with the psychological setup of the players. But I would urge them that they have to put out a grand fight up to the end. It's not over until it's over.
Malawi has had a poor run of form away from home and have lost their previous 5 matches consecutively, with the latest defeat coming in the hands of Burkina Faso last year in the 2022 AFCON qualifiers. For Zodiac, this is Bright Kanyama.
Well, that's it for now. Let's take another look at the headlines before we leave. Magistrate refuses to recuse himself from extradition case of Prophet Bushiri and his wife Mary. Government allows exportation of 350,000 metric tons of maize before next harvest. Former President Bakiri Muruzi joins queue of COVID-19 vaccine recipients getting a jab at his home in Blantyre. In sports, Malawi's Flames are off to Sudan for an AFCON qualifier match on March 24. Visit our website zodiacmalawi.com for more news, and if you are in the target groups for the first phase of COVID-19 vaccine, please go for a jab without fail. You could save your life and that of others. My name is Chancellor Zabanda. Thanks for watching.